Hi, it's Steve Rowe at Center City Hypnosis. Today's clip, I'm going to answer what is probably the number one question in the back of everyone's mind who's considering using hypnosis to solve a personal problem or to get better at something. And that is the question, which I'm sure is in the back of everyone's mind, is will hypnosis work for me, or will it help solve my problem? And it's a completely valid question to wonder about. It's completely natural to wonder that. But the real honest answer to that question, even though it's completely valid, is who knows? No idea. People. I know sometimes people want a more solid answer, but it's just the way things are. You can't really make stuff up in that area. It's just silly. This is meant to draw a little diagram here, hopefully meant to explain a bit more detail why it's a bit more complicated than why the question can't be answered really. This is a representation of kind of what at least my interpretation of what the hypnotic interaction is like. Here we have two people, hypnotist and the hypnotee here. As I kind of mentioned, everyone has a different capacity for a sense of humor, different styles of humor that they respond to, and that's kind of like every hypnotee, a person who's being hypnotized, has a different capacity, certain potential that they can reach in terms of how hypnotizable they are. Basically, that means how intensely they can experience different types of hypnotic phenomena, and that is kind of what we could call like their level of hypnotic skill. Everyone's born with different inclinations and different potentials that they can reach in terms of hypnotic skill, and the hypnotist also has to have a certain amount of hypnotic skill, because meaning that the hypnotist, their job is to help draw that hypnotic potential up to its highest capacity in a specific individual. So the hypnotist's role is to help kind of pull that ability out, not physically, but just help elicit that ability from the hypnotee. And in a kind of cooperative relationship, it becomes very easy for the hypnotist to help do that, so they can reach their highest capacity. And when people, use hypnotic phenomena, that sort of thing, for a specific goal, it can kind of amplify and intensify certain things, which make it easier to overcome certain problems or obstacles, which prevent that kind of solution from being solved or found before. But anyway, so the fact is, everyone has different capacity here to get hypnotized, and every obviously hypnotist has a different capacity or skill level in terms of helping people reach that potential. And most people are, by definition, are kind of average in terms of how hypnotizable they are. Just the definition of average, right? Most people are in the middle. Some people are very, very hypnotizable, or have the most capacity, at least, to experience really intense hypnotic phenomena. Some people don't have so much capacity. I'm trying to do this backwards here. Some people don't have that much capacity, which is fine. Because in order to kind of help bring the change about, in order to reach a specific goal, it still needs to involve, the role of a hypnotist, not just helping people develop that hypnotic skill that they already have internally, but also helping them. The hypnotist needs to be able to actually have the helping skill, or kind of people skill, so that they can kind of fill in the gap. That's how I think about it. Like they kind of fill in the gap, so that they can kind of fill in this area, so that they can kind of get the whole fill in the wherever this however far the person is able to get hypnotized. And so someone who's very easily hypnotizable and has a lot of hypnotic capacity, and it's still dependent on the hypnotist helping them reach that capacity. And the fact is, like, depending on how that relationship works between two people, the hypnotist and the hypnotee, whether even if someone has very high hypnotic capacity, they might not do as well as someone who has less hypnotic capacity if the hypnotist is in that relationship, that specific relationship, finds that they are able to bring about more of that hypnotic skill that's inherent in that person, and also use their helping skill to kind of fill in the gap and bring that change about. So this is meant to help explain why It's not necessarily the case that someone who's more hypnotizable is going to automatically have more success in solving the problem. That's really not the case. It really depends on the interaction between all these different elements. So it's quite a bit more involved than just, well, if the person is very hypnotizable, then they'll solve the problem. If someone who's less hypnotizable won't, because that's too simplistic. And over time, of course, a person over time working with the hypnotist can eventually train themselves to develop more and more of that capacity over time. Sometimes it can happen very quickly. They can reach their potential very quickly. Sometimes it takes a few times to really develop that. But I hope that's meant to help explain why it's been more complex and why that question is kind of difficult to answer. That question I mentioned earlier about how will I know if I'm hypnotizable or not? Because there's first of all, there's really no reliable way to tell where someone belongs on this scale, where the hypnotist belongs on it, where the hypnotee belongs on that scale. There are some common traits which are very useful, which I'll go through real quickly, which the hypnotee needs to be able to have, some common traits which are very useful. That's good coachability, which is basically the ability to just follow simple instructions and to follow the hypnotist's lead. And of course the hypnotist needs to be flexible enough to work with whatever the person is, or their various characteristics. The hypnotee also needs to have no fear of the hypnotist, because in order to draw out that skill, that potential, it's easier to do that when a person is not scared of what's going on. Uncertainty about the process is okay. Uncertainty about whether or not it's going to work is okay. That's totally fine and normal, but they shouldn't have fear about the hypnotist or the process itself. And response attentive, that kind of goes along with coachability. That just means that the hypnotee simply needs to be able to focus and follow along with what the hypnotist is instructing and kind of guiding them towards. A hypnotee who already has made up their mind about how something needs to be done or how the problem needs to be solved. That kind of inflexible mindset is not something that leads to success with this kind of work, or really any type of thing like this. But anyway, I hope this kind of makes it clearer about why this is kind of more involved and more complex than why that question really can't be answered, is whether or not, how will I know if this is going to work for me or not? I hope that was useful for you and kind of makes it make more sense. And okay.